In 3, 2, 1, buenos noches, fellows.
Buenos tacos, muchachos.
Oh, I like that, Deej. Buenos tacos, muchachos.
Nice.
Well, I'm not making hate, so could it be Hastings making me? What's time at a thing they kill or keep a buy or lose a living? I gotta go faster, keep up the pace, just to stay in the human race. I could go supersonic, the problem's chronic. Tell me, does life exist beyond it? When I need to sate, I just accelerate into oblivion. Into oblivion.
Buenos nachos, amigos. Welcome to another fine episode of The Record Breakers. I am your head shenanigizer, PD Rave. Here with me, as always, to discuss music, I've got none other than Brett.
In Technicolor.
Patrick.
Behind a mic stand.
And Drew.
Hey.
And of course, as we teased last week, we have a special guest once again. This time, I won't delete the episode. Hey! And we have somebody with us, a good friend of ours, none other than David Jeffrey Majors, a.k.a. DJ M. How you doing, DJ M?
Overly white balanced because of my t-shirt.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. And we're going to be talking about something really cool, an interesting album that you provided us with. What is the album that we're going to be discussing this week?
The album you guys will be discussing is the 1999 album from my favorite band in the entire known universe, Dream Theater. The name of the album is Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory.
Mm-hmm. It is a very interesting, very fascinating album. Very cool album. But we're gonna talk about. And all right, let's get started. I'll start with you, Brett. Did you have any expectations going into this album?
Boy, howdy. Yeah. I'm familiar. I'm familiar with some Dream Theater. I worked in a music store where Mike Portnoy sold millions of cymbals, and Petrucci Music Man's 7 strings hung on walls for years. But I had also seen sometimes they would play a couple of their concert DVDs over the stage, and yeah, I got about what I expected I was going to get.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll go with you, Drew. What expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, my expectations were a little weird because whenever Dream Theater popped up in my head, it was always connected to people who I really didn't like their taste in music.
So we're pretty much on the same. We're pretty much on the right page then.
Yes.
Yeah, like all the people that I knew that listened to Dream Theater also listened to bands like Magruder Grind and Meshuggah, and
So we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah.
Wait, am I the only person in the room who likes Meshuggah?
No, you're not, Swagger. I love them.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I was like, oh, so it's like my thought was, okay, it's going to be a concept version of that. So I really didn't dive in. I was into sort of that screaming metal when I was like 13, 14. I sort of got out of it, but that was kind of my thought that's what I thought going into it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so go with you, Patrick. What did you think going into this album?
I'm fairly familiar with Dream Theater. Like, I've seen them live. I enjoy some of their albums, not all. I do, like, I think most drummers my age kind of worship at the Temple of Portnoy once in a while, because what Mike Portnoy did was take all the best things about Neil Peart from Rush.
Fighting words.
No, I'm not saying
fighting words.
Can I finish? Took all the best things about Neil Peart and then mixed them with all the best things about Dave Lombardo from Slayer, and then had a baby, and that's Mike Portnoy. And that like, to me, it's basically the clean technicality of Neil Peart, but the energy and the metal of a guy like Lombardo. And so because of that, most of the time I've ever listened to Dream Theater, it's basically just to see whatever Portnoy's doing in it, because it's amazing. And to see him live, the spinning camel that he is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. I pretty much had no expectations going into this album, really. Because I had no experience of Dream Theater. I know of them. But most of the time it was knowing people who liked Dream Theater, and I kind of had some idea, but really didn't have any expectations. DJ, how about you regale us with what are the kind of the key themes and elements that we're looking at when it comes to this album and Dream Theater in general?
I would say Dream Theater is a band that is unapologetic. They are a progressive rock band in the 21st century, and they do not give a fuck about what you think about it. And this album was coming off of an album from 1997 called Falling Into Infinity. It was an album that was not terrible. There was a lot of record company involvement that nearly split the band apart. And Dream Theater is the kind of band that you cannot poke and tell what to do, because things turn out weird and it comes off as inauthentic. So with this album, they pretty much said, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to be Dream Theater.
Yeah.
And Scenes from a Memory is what came out.
Yes. All right. So I'll go with Patrick now. What were the themes and elements that stood out for you?
So it's concept album. That I think we should talk about is, and sort of the good and the bad of concept albums is they can either be really, really, in my mind, like well thought out and concise and one thing. And part of what I did listening for this week was I went back and listened to all my favorite concept albums. Mastodon's Leviathan, Meshuggah's Catch 33, Coheed and Cambria's second record, and a couple others, and just realized those are all kind of clock in between 40 and 50 minutes. This album is every minute of like 78 minutes, and it is a long, hard slog at times. But then again, I get my Mike Portnoy, and this album, like I haven't listened to Dream Theater consistently in a few years, and now I'm like, oh, this was why I listened to Dream Theater again, because I think when you call them progressive rock, I always think of them as progressive metal, because there's definitely a more metallic vibe to them than like the bands that preceded them. Like
I say in the doc for the show, I say they are metal influenced progressive rock or progressive rock influenced metal, whichever one you decide on at any given
metal fusion.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
that happens on this album a couple times.
There's a band called Cynic that does that as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brett, what would be the elements and themes that stood out for you?
Elements. It's you get the super group. I call it a syndrome. If you can do it, you do it. If you can put it on the album, you do it. Even if it's 1990s cheesy MIDI keyboard, let's put it on there. It's some of the best technical musicians to ever get together and record, and they aren't humble about it. There is a definite sound of the late 90s that you get hit in the face with, and if you listen to it, you will definitely get sent back to a certain place in time. I can see myself at the time of when this album was recorded, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a definite little bit of a wayback machine in that sense. Yeah, it's really cool. Interesting aspect to that. Drew, what would be the themes and elements for you?
I'm gonna knock that out of you, Petey. I'm gonna knock it out of you. I swear. I'm sorry, Drew. Go on ahead.
I have no idea what's going on. No, but like what DJ M said, I think is very, very pointed. They they know what they are, and it's very obvious they know what they are. They are great technical musicians. And they know it, and they flaunt it. There's definite, like, 80s, early 90s influence in here that you cannot hide. Period. And I was really surprised by that. I was expecting a more in-your-face, as I said, grindy metal album. What I got was, like, this progressive power metal album. Mm-hmm. And I actually really enjoyed it. There's the type of metal that I get into when I listen to metal is something that's sort of like you ride into battle on your Cherry Sauce and your Camelot and things of that nature. And there was definitely some songs in here that I could see in like a medieval movie riding in the battle on. There's musically speaking, there's cool like mid-90s like metal ballady stuff going on here that was really cool. There's a lot of influence, a lot of it more on the technical side. There's a Rush influence that you can see. There's an 80s metal like Metallica, like Megadeth, Anthraxy influence that you can see, but it was all really, really well done. The story and the concept of it was really, really cool. What I would have liked more is what I like about some of my favorite like sort of concept albums are that if you took away the lyrics, you could still hear the story. And I didn't get that. I sort of lost that. It doesn't always connect the two to me. But overall, I think as a package, it was fantastic.
Well, just to one point of that, this is the actual album, Metropolis Part 2, is the sequel to a Dream Theater song called Metropolis Part 1. So there are a lot of musical themes that tie in to where if you are aware of that song, you'll recognize a lot of things, and the story doesn't necessarily match up with the song itself. So that was done kind of in mind without the story, but more of a tie-in to the original song.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think what he's talking about, what Drew is speaking to, is something that he found in a previous album with our previous guest, Squiggles McGee, aka Matthew Walton, in Days of Future Past, because that's one of the elements that Drew brought up about that album that was great, was how much it without the lyrics, you could sense the story in the music, which is really cool. And I could still feel it here in Dream Theater, but I definitely see what your point is.
It's there in parts, but not a whole lot. I think the two that highlight it to me are That Moody Blues album that we covered, Days of Future Past, and also in keeping the one that Swagger brought up, Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, the second length Coheed album. Those two, I think, sort of could be scores to stories without the lyrics in them, whereas there are parts of this one that can do that, but the whole of it cannot, which that's not knocking the record. That's my idea of concept albums and what they can be, but
it's
not
just
the point.
Yeah. So, David, what would be some of the key tracks that we should focus in on this album?
I would say, just one more time to kind of tie in the first song, Metropolis, Part 1, The Miracle in the Sleeper, from Dream Theater's Images and Words album. That would be, I would say, before most other things on this album, it would probably be a good idea to hear that one, because you'll hear a lot of musical themes and lyrical callbacks all over this album to that song. But I would say, first and foremost, my favorite song on this album, and probably my favorite Dream Theater song, is the song Fatal Tragedy, for a couple of different reasons. The chorus, well, not the chorus, the verses of the song are some interesting harmonies with James LaBrie, John Petrucci, and Mike Portnoy. The little interspersed keyboard parts with the Hammond circa 1999 from Jordan Rudess are really nice, and of course the end section where everything goes completely bonkers. That would be one that I personally enjoy. Along with that one, I would say a song that I actually did an AMV for is the opener to the album, Overture 1928. And I would say those would be the first two to really jump in as a starting point.
Did you upload your AMV onto animemusicvideos.org?
No. It's just on this obscure site called YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I miss animemusicvideos.org. I mean, it's still there, but I miss my active involvement in there. All right, so let's go to Brett. What would be some of the tracks that you that caught your attention?
Let me. I did not write down which act. Okay, Act 2, Scene 6, Home. I'd like to give out the sitar warning. There is sitar.
Yes.
Gird your gourd. There's some sitar. If you're into that, that's some of the best sitar and I've heard. Which there's the another
sitar
track.
is never a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. I love it. I love it.
Never say never.
Okay.
Again.
Act 1, Scene 4, Beyond This Life, probably had the biggest impression on me because you get some amazing Sega Saturn era keyboard sound. It sounds like you went into Capcom hell and Mega Man and Ryu are there whipping you, and then it changes and it starts sounding like Secret of Mana music.
I will say
and it matches the Beetle Deedles. They match the Beetle Deedles with the guitar, and then you end up at Wii era Mario music.
I will tell you that one is Jordan Rudess and Mike Portnoy expressing their undying love for Frank Zappa. That one, if you hear or watch the live scenes from New York DVD where the band members are doing the live commentary on that particular track, Mike Portnoy explicitly says, Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa, Frank Zappa. Yeah. So, yes.
But,
yeah.
I listen to it. If you've never heard somebody go keyboard crazy with the tone wheel and the
he doesn't use a wheel, he has a pad.
Well, okay, yes.
He does have a wheel. Jordan Rudess does have a wheel.
I'm sure he used all sorts of different kinds of. I was there's a list of 50 different keyboards made by all sorts of different manufacturers. I'm sure that at some point he's used every kind of turny wheel or control.
In the case of Jordan Rudess, he has. Yes.
Yes, because I just looked through the equipment list and it was like a Wikipedia
the shopping list.
Yeah,
Going back to when I used to listen to Dream Theater, my brother was really active on the John Petrucci forums. He had his own guitar forum, and it was the corner of the internet for tone snobs. Because
that's like quadruple. That's like a pretension.
It was, but you could make an entire Wikipedia, just for Dream Theater gear. Because they all have the most absurd rigs, except for John Mayung, who doesn't care. He plays kind of a cool ass bass I think mostly through DIs, and that's the end of it. But I had a time in my life, I think many people who play drums, where I was obsessed with how many drums can we put in this drum kit. And if anyone's ever seen Freaks and Geeks, where he's got the 38-piece drum kit in his basement, and Portnoy's kits were always
Swagger,
insane.
You have not yet seen Mike Mangini's drum kit yet.
Here's
the thing. We're not gonna go there. I don't know. We're not going there.
An old grandpa, in his 60s, Neil Peart, is still getting lifted into his drum kit with two drum kits. And he's able to almost get Social Security if he were an American.
There's two types of drummers that do that, and it's the ones that listen to the metal and the ones that listen to jazz. I find are the ones that are hey, I want 20 toms. even though I'm only going to hit this tom like 3 times. Like, don't care. I want all of them. I want all of the toms.
You want a full chromatic drum kit.
But
Right.
then there are bands like Dream Theater where it's like, yeah, I will be using all of these. I will be using all of these.
Yeah.
I'll
In
take
every
them
song.
all.
Yes.
Some just like the obscure drum for like the one song, and some it's like, I'm gonna drum fill on 20 toms because
Yeah.
that's my drum fill.
Yes.
It's just gonna be it.
It's my
And
signature.
because I am not a drummer, and I can be very judgmental of the Music Man John Petrucci, both 6-string and 7-string. That is the most pretentious guitar you could ever pull out. Like, I mean, seriously. Like, somebody pulls out their Music Man, you're like, oh, is it old
There's
Stingray?
there's one I think that is more, and this is my challenge. Monkey Grip Steve Vai Gem.
But at least those guitars are kind of fun. The Music Man Petrucci it feels weird. Like, everybody go
played
find one, put your hand on the neck of one.
Yeah.
It's funky. I don't hold with it, bub.
It's
For
fascinating.
nature that talks. But
it's
yeah,
fascinating
that's
hearing you
homework.
guys to talk gear. It's always fascinating. hearing you
Yes,
guys
we
talk
could
gear.
literally we should have
We
a
could do that
side
for
episode
hours.
of just talking here from
Yeah.
Dream Theater.
All right, I'm gonna go since
No, just talking gear, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Drew. What would be some of the tracks that stood out for you?
For me, it was a couple of tracks really stood out, not because of the story, which I actually, the story as a whole, like, another episode we could have, because it's really kind of cool, I think, and I want to actually dive into it more before I make a sort of literary critique of that. But the ones that stood out for me were Strange Deja Vu, sort of hit me really hard at the very beginning. I like headbanger tracks. I don't know why, and that just felt like a very headbanger track to me.
Yeah.
I went to shows and I was the headbanger kid in the back with the hoodie on, just banging along, just doing my thing. Beyond This Life, I wanted to highlight as well. It's an 11-minute song that felt like a 6-minute song to me. Like, it felt half its length, and to do that at 11 minutes, I think is to be commended. They kept it interesting throughout the entire song. They changed it up a lot, and it broke it up. It really, really did it right. And Through Her Eyes, I really liked Through Her Eyes, sort of the low keyness of it as it was like switching and stuff like that. I think it was really, really cool. And those tracks to me really sort of, in 3 tracks, sort of sum up like the 3 different feelings that I think this album sort of puts forth in each of its songs.
I just want to ask to all of you. There's one particular track that hasn't been mentioned yet that I'm kind of curious about what you guys think, and that is the Dance of Eternity, the instrumental on this album. I'd like to know, just throwing it out there, what you guys thought of that song.
Why not? Well, this was the things that I like. This is why Dream Theater is cool to me. One, it's metal as hell for a while, and then it's really proggy, and then it's swing, just because why not?
Yeah.
And
Because
then
it's Dream
like,
Theater.
and then
Dream Theater.
the thing I have many things I hate about Dream Theater. I hate James LeBray's voice. He's incredibly talented.
You're dead to me.
All I really want, no, this is what I want. Imagine Dream Theater with Russell Allen from Symphony X, and you have 10 times the band for me.
Hey,
Just
put Diamond Dave up front to do jump splits, and I'm down. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't have to be good. Just be entertaining.
James LeBray, he's an incredible singer. Like, his voice is spectacular. He has great range and control and does great things. I just don't like it. And but the person in Dream Theater that I wish they just turned up on the mixing board is always John Mayung, because I is one of the most insane bass players.
Yeah, you couldn't hear it at all.
Swagger,
Except at the end of this
I
song
will-
where he just monsters out like an amazing solo.
Swagger, I will tell you, they fixed that on the later albums.
It's better on the later stuff. Like I know, Train of Thought is my like Dream Theater album I always go to because it's heavier in hell, and I like that about it.
Yeah.
And there's more of it, but like there's like 3 times on this album where you actually get to hear the bass line, and they're all amazing. And like Dance of Eternity, like these are the words I wrote as I was listening. Jesus fucking hell, my young is a monster, and that's that sums.
He's also a fantastic lyricist.
Yes.
He wrote the lyrics on this album to Fatal Tragedy, and all of the generally regarded within the Dream Theater fan base, known as the best songs lyrically, were more than likely written by John Mayung. He is absolutely wonderful, and every Dream Theater fan loves him dearly.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying is 100% true.
And that last statement is why a lot of people have problems with Dream Theater fans. I love you, DJM, but just throwing that out there.
Now all I can really think of is that clip of David Lee Roth with no backing track doing the. I think it was Dancing with the Devil. It was just him going.
David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth.
I'm going to be the David Lee Roth apologist in the room.
David Lee Roth is the.
I'll listen to 1984 all day.
Yes.
David Lee Roth is pretty much the antithesis of everything that I like.
All right, so Patrick, what any other particular tracks that caught your attention?
But yeah, Dance of Eternity. Drew, what did you think of that one?
The instrumental, Dance of Eternity, is exactly the opposite of what I was expecting. Like, to me, the 3 I listed, sort of exemplify the album, but I was not expecting a technical, like when you do an instrumental in the middle of an album with lyrics, that has to be like the technical like point of the album, right? Everybody has to get a say. Everybody got a say. And it was sort of the technical high point. When I said that you can hear points of Rush, it's moments like those where they just want to shred for shredding's sake, and I can appreciate that. And that's what an instrumental should be, I think, is just them going as high as they possibly can on the album while still making it mix in with the rest of the album.
What do you think, Petey? What do you think, Petey? Tell me what you think. What you think, buddy?
I think it's a fascinating. It's a fascinating foray into everybody's technical abilities, and it kind of offers an interesting kind of little aside in that journey when you go through the story. It's overall a really cool track when you're just kind of sitting there jamming to it and listening to it and kind of engulfing yourself in it. Intangibles.
Hustle. Lots of hustle.
Yes. That was my way of saying I just bullshitted my way through that. Patrick, let's go to you. What track stood out for you?
Preparation.
Yes.
I will agree with Brett on Home for 2 reasons. One, sitar,
that was all I said was
sitar. That's one. That's one. I will. 2, the bass line sounds disturbingly like 46 and 2 by Tool, and not in a bad way. It's disturbingly like 46 and 2.
I didn't even give a review to that song. I just said there is sitar.
Yeah, well, I like that song.
Yes.
Because there's a bass line and I get to hear John Mayung, and he's awesome.
Check the transcripts.
And I think we all sort of mentioned Beyond This Life. The thing I like about it is there's a less meatly guitar solo, because John Petrucci is kind of the one of the like half a dozen meatly me guys who just like a lot of their playing comes down to meatly me's. I think of like him, Steve Vai, and all the Satriani and all that sort of like 90s shredders that all became like a thing because they could shred.
But this album came at fart guitar time. It was fart guitar and squealies, you know.
Yeah, and there's I don't think there's one pinch harmonic on this record.
Yeah.
I don't think I heard one. But I liked Beyond This Life that it's an 11-minute song that's good for 11 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and And also, even Fatal Tragedy, which I know DJ M likes, Jordan Rudess was the best thing that ever happened to Dream Theater. Like, no offense to their previous keyboard player, but Rudess is that he can make a keyboard sound almost like a guitar, which means you get kind of back and forth guitar solos with one guitar player.
That reminds me of a couple of times where John Petrucci and Jordan Rudess, yes, have had guitar and guitar
battles. You can have a guitar battle with a keyboard.
And yes, that has happened. And it is amazing.
And if you've ever seen them live, like, they're this clean live, which blows my damn mind.
That is one of those things that Dream Theater and Dream Theater fans are completely unapologetic about. It's like, yep, we're doing this.
Well, anyone who's ever seen 5 minutes of live video of Dragon Force knows that just because you sound good on a record doesn't mean you know how to play it.
Yeah.
Dream Theater, on the other hand,
good on the record. I'm gonna be that guy and mention that it's multiple tracks. I'm gonna be the recording snob on this one. F them. They don't really sound like that on the record.
Yeah.
Dragon Force? Fuck no. No, not Dragon Force. No.
All right, so
that was what I was getting at.
Mm-hmm. Steady this shit, Petey. Steady it.
Okay, so Brett, so let's go kind of around the horn and say, what did you think, last conclusive thoughts, what did you thought of the album overall?
Overall, I didn't really enjoy it that much. It's just not my style. I mean, those guys are good. They can do it. They obviously have a big following. But it's of the era and the style that I'm not really big into. But luckily, you don't have to have my taste. So...
Yeah, and it's and we did.
I'm still trying to figure out exactly what your tastes are, Brett.
Mostly, they might be Giants and Lady Gaga.
Yes. What? No. I didn't bring Lady Gaga because it's in my standard rotation.
Yes. All right, Patrick. What would be your conclusions overall?
I haven't listened to Dream Theater in a couple of years, and now I'm kind of like, oh, this was why I listened to Dream Theater. I think the album's a bit too long, and that's just me. But it's sort of, it reminds me what I like about it, and also what I don't. I still don't like James LeBray's voice. He's great, but he's not. I know, sorry. Love you. But they're Metal Rush to me. Like they take...
You take the R word out of that?
But they're a band that grew up listening to Rush, but also grew up listening to thrash metal, and put those things together.
Yeah, I would also throw a lot.
I'm not saying they're better. I'm saying they take elements of that.
You do not take the R word in vain, okay?
I take the Canadians in vain.
As a diehard Dream Theater fanboy, we all have nothing but the utmost level of love and worship for that particular band from the Great White North.
Yes, I like Rush more than I like Dream Theater.
So and I would throw in a lot of Pink Floyd in there. Yeah, I would throw in a lot of Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. If you name a prog rock band from the 70s, it influenced Dream Theater a little bit.
Yeah. So, Drew, what would be your conclusions overall about the album?
My conclusion was my utter surprise at this album, actually. It was really good. Like, Brett and Swagger have both touched on. These guys can play. There's no joke that these guys can play. If you are into, metal and technical musicianship, there is no reason not to, listen to these guys. I am surprised that eluded me for so long, I guess. I enjoyed myself listening to this record. And like I said, I'll probably go back through and reread liner notes and sort of synopses of the storyline, as it were. Yeah, it was just a really solid prog record that just happened to be very much influenced by 80s metal.
Yes.
I did not know that.
You pretty much got it, Drew. You pretty much got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not what I thought I was getting into, but
you pretty much nailed
glad
it.
that was what we got in.
All right, so Deej, what would be your conclusions? What is your rebuttal?
Nobody.
I really don't have a rebuttal. I think that generally everything that you guys have been saying is pretty much along the lines of what people expect from a Dream Theater album. And,
Yeah, Brett not to like it. Yes.
Well, again, Brett, I'm not sure what you like, but that's
I play my cards close.
Yes, yes. It makes for a
So
more interesting podcast.
I really have no issue with anything other than Swagger, who is now dead to me.
Hey, I'm down with that too. Just on
Yes.
on principle.
Yes.
I've been replaced.
Yes. Yeah, we've got Squiggles waiting in the wings. Just
That's
understand
right.
that.
He's in the bullpen.
Never gonna be on Fanny Pack again. Never.
Yeah, I got word from creative. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
We wish you well in your future endeavors. Not really. You're
never
dead to
again.
me.
All right, so speaking of Fanny Pack, we get to the main event of the evening. We unfortunately don't have Gavin Loudspeaker to announce it, so I'll just have to say it plainly. We are the main event of this podcast, and just like any other episode, we do our haiku reviews. And I'm going to start with Drew, since he's already on camera. Drew!
Oh, alright. Oh, great. What I thought I'd hear before this was brought to me, it's not what I got.
Nice. Patrick, what is your haiku review?
Prog rock memories from a better time in life. Portnoy blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brett, what is your haiku review?
Tone of the 90s, played by a few of the best. For me, it falls short.
Mm-hmm. And of course,
Oh,
mine.
I have one. I
Wait,
have
wait.
one.
Yours is last. You're the You're the star. You're the star. You get to go last.
Stop that.
Mine's
Stop it.
is. Theatrics abound. Harkens to influences. Not for everyone. DJM, what is your haiku?
DT's finest work, and Portnoy's midlife crisis had not kicked in yet.
Yes. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Of course, that is all for this episode of Record Breakers. DJM, do you have anything that you would like to promote on our show?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. If you want to catch DJM, you can follow him at Just Call Me DJM or DeltaJuliaMike.com. You can follow all of us. Patrick is at The Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbard, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at Xtruciferx. I am at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. Rebelli.net for this and all of our other shows, including Helijuku and Fanny Pack. Just
What are we
iTunes,
listening to
Stitcher.
next week, yo?
Oh, yes. What are we listening to next week? I missed
Yo
it.
MTV Raps, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know.
That would be kind of awesome.
That's
I mean, I know
also,
you guys just did. I know you guys just did Hip Hop Month, but that would be kind of awesome.
The other gray.
Yes. Next week, I'm going to have my pick of Love X Stereo. We're going to do something interesting. We're going to actually listen to 3 EPs, all of them like just a couple tracks long, and kind of pretend it's their debut full-length album. So that's going to be
Rule
interesting.
Breakers, the new name of our show, Rule Breakers, where we break the rules of our show.
Yes, exactly.
That's so meta. I love it. That's
Yeah.
so meta.
But
So-
that will be what we do next week. So look forward to that. Of course, everything I just told you, iTunes, Stitcher. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
I'm feeling like I'm going out of my head.